Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Hook Turn podcast with my very good friend Sanviv. How are you today, Sanviv?
I'm doing quite well. We've got some great topics, especially cars coming from the Beijing Motor Show. There's actually more cars than we could possibly talk about. If we try to talk about all of them, it might take two, three episodes. We'll probably pick the ones that we found the most interesting to speak about. And yeah.
Yeah, the Beijing auto show or motor show. There's so many SUVs and of different sizes and shapes. So we've decided to the car that we're going to be focusing on is not an SUV, which is probably the reason why we've decided to talk of well, one of the main reasons why we've decided to talk about it because it's something that's a little bit different from the norm. But anyway, so we have two other topics that we'll be talking about today. So let's get started with the first one, which is some news coming out of Germany with the all-new Mercedes C-Class EV. So this is Mercedes's electric C-Class, and I think the one interesting thing is that this is probably the first electric model in recent memory where they've dropped the EQ branding entirely. So I think this is probably a bit of a sign for their
It
future.
says with EQ technology.
Is
So
it with EQ?
C400 formatting, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. So
Oh,
it won't
okay.
be called EQ thing. Now the
Yeah.
technology is being framed as EQ.
Okay. Okay. So they've sort of like, I feel like they've dropped it from the actual model name, but then the specification is still saying C400 with EQ technology.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're trying to hold on to that EQ branding in some in some respects. But I think Sam, my first question is this or the BMW i3?
Oh, definitely the i3, simply because of the fact it seems far more revolutionary. The interior, yes, screen heavy, but seems to be better designed rather than just stick it as big a screen as possible. Though I will say, in some ways, this car does look nicer from the exterior. Obviously, the
Hmm.
new BMW 3 Series, yes, it's a much more radical redesign, but it won't necessarily appeal to everyone. This car, broadly speaking, I imagine in the middle that most people will be like, at least from the outside, be like, this car looks very nice. But at least when you're actually inside and if you're thinking about the technology, then no, the BMW has this beat.
Yeah. It's interesting. So maybe we'll just provide a little bit more information on some of the specifications. So, um, the battery size is, I believe it's 94 or 95 kilowatt hours. The launch specification has dual motor all-wheel drive 360 kilowatts, a range of 760 kilometers on the WLTP cycle. So compare that to the BMW i3, which is in its X-Drive 50 specification, has 900 kilometers. So this is, it's almost or 140 kilometers short. So that's quite significant, to be honest. I think the main advantage specification wise that this has over the i3 is that it has the option of air suspension and it comes with the rear wheel steering. So those are probably the two main specification advantages. So based on that, we're expecting it to have a shorter turning circle, so maybe it's a little bit more maneuverable in the city and also a little bit more comfortable and potentially slightly more refined with some of the noise insulation as well. But otherwise, I think the speed is also it's a little bit faster to from the 0 to 100 kilometers an hour. So the i3 we're expecting to do that to do the 0 to 100 kilometers in an hour sprint from in maybe around, I think it's 4.7, 4.8 seconds. This one is expected to do the same sprint in 4.1 to 4.2 seconds. And that's primarily because it has that two-speed gearbox like the Porsche Taycan um, does as well. So I think so my initial thoughts on the design, like it's clear that they've moved away from the super egg-shaped styling of the EQS and the EQE. However, it is still a little bit more rounded than its predecessor. So um, it still has a little bit more of that curved design, and I think especially if you have a look at the rear three quarters, it's very like it's almost like a fastback type design. It doesn't have it's not like a strict three box design with like a separate sort of boot section. I mean, it does have a separate boot, but it doesn't look like it does from the outside, and it's more curvy than the BMW is. Yeah, I think again this will be we'll see how it looks like in person. I think that will be the key factor that determines how successful the styling is because in photos I'm not the biggest fan. Like it's a little bit too egg-shaped for my liking. Yeah, and then the interior, again, we've got the Mercedes has adopted the same approach as it has with the recent GLC, where it's a hyperscreen, which is one huge, I think, 39-inch display. But I think one of the more interesting things is that it still has the manual air vent control. So despite having such a huge screen, you still have to you can adjust the direction of the air vents manually. So I think that's really interesting. And that's something that I really like. Yeah, Sandeep, any other comments on the design? I know you've touched on it briefly, and how successful do you reckon this car will be?
It'll be interesting. I'll be curious to see how they price that relative to the new BMW 3
Mm,
Series. It probably needs to start at a tiny bit under six figures.
yeah.
Um, Especially because it has a lot less hype than the new BMW 3 Series. Now, people who buy Mercedes or people who might be put off by the more radical looks of the new BMW 3 Series might still consider this as an option.
Mm,
But obviously, anyone who is spending this kind of money, broadly speaking, I would imagine would do some kind of research and be like, yep, the technology in the BMW is far more superior.
mm.
But I don't know, there could be people who find the very screen heavy style interior much more appealing to them. Maybe I don't know who these customers could be, but that could be a possibility. Um, in reality, while people complain about these massive screen heavy designs, I cannot imagine that we've been used to Tesla for many years, and most of the big brands with the EVs have become very screen heavy. I have to imagine with this it'll be the same thing. Once you get used to driving 1 or 2 days, it will become the norm. Like I don't think anyone will be like, man, this is too many screens on the regular. In fact,
Mm,
most people when they step into the car will be like, wow, this looks incredible. Like especially the passenger with a screen in front of them as well.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, other than that, yes, it is interesting that they are also working more on the technology side of EVs. So, over 700 kilometers of range already. So possibly more with future
Mm,
designs. Obviously, the 800-volt architecture, which means that it can charge extremely quickly within 10 minutes, getting roughly 300 kilometers. So basically, they're trying to also be like make it as convenient as a petrol car. So they're like, so people who would traditionally have bought a petrol version of the C Class or the 3 Series now are like, yeah, it's an EV, but you get all the advantages of EV without any of the inconveniences that an EV might bring. So, yeah, and also with this, as with everything, the technology in these luxury cars will eventually start trickling down to the more mainstream cars. So, right now, this technology is kind of more exclusive to more expensive cars, but in 5, 10 years' time, and probably not even 10 years' time, in 5 years' time, even economy cars will have screens, that are this massive. Like, really, it's only a matter of time. So, um, yeah, it's good for the industry, I guess. And yeah, I'm curious to see then, I guess, Audi, when they refresh their cars to go up against these new competitors from BMW and Mercedes.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. I mean, it will be interesting to see Audi's take. Like we've seen, in the SUV space, we've sort of seen, Volvo, BMW, Mercedes that released three models, like, in a very short period of time next to each other. And in the sedan space, again, BMW and Mercedes have released their direct competitors in a very short period of time. Very close to each other as well. I will make one point about just how Mercedes is doing in Australia, which is that they've sort of they've not sort of they've transitioned to more of an agency model. So what that means is that they have fixed prices and the vehicles are owned centrally by Mercedes headquarters, and there's no sort of haggling, and it's a fixed price, similar to what Honda is doing as well. And that hasn't again, for Mercedes, that hasn't been super successful either. Like their volume has kind of gone quite reduced quite a bit. There was at one point the C Class was the second most successful sedan behind the Toyota Camry, and this is probably before the Tesla Model 3 became super popular, but that was still a statistic at one point, and they were in Australia, they were competing head to head on a volume basis with BMW. More recently, Mercedes has not done that well. Like in a volume numbers perspective, they haven't been able to sell as many vehicles as BMW has, and that's due to a range of factors. Firstly, this new dealership model just hasn't been that successful. Secondly, I think their electric models just haven't been as successful as BMW's options. So EQS, EQE has not sort of both have been sort of commercial failures in Australia. The cheaper models, I think the EQB hasn't done that well either. So let's see how the C class goes. Yeah, I'm personally not a huge fan, similar to you, Sam, of this screen heavy approach. Like, I think it's just I can see how it has a lot of showroom appeal, but it's just a little bit too much. Like, I feel like they're leaning in too much to a fad, and it's not like, it's not what genuine luxury means to me at the very least. So, anyway, any final points in this car?
No, like I said, I mean, it'll be a while before it comes to Australia, I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure. So,
yeah,
we won't be seeing it in Australia till at least next year.
yeah.
But again, it's good to see that, and also from what I've been reading is that there's still going to be a next gen, petrol powered traditional
Yes.
hybrid version of this C class as well. They're not just going to be doing EV only.
Yeah.
So that will be also curious to see how that goes as well.
Yeah, I think the thinking is that they will still have the current C class on sale side by side as like a petrol and plug-in hybrid option, and then they will update. They're looking into updating that to bring it in line a little bit more with this new electric C class. So yeah. Okay. We might move on to our next topic, which is the uh, Denza Z convertible. So this is the our pick from the Beijing Auto Show, and the reason why we chose it is because it's not an SUV, and most of the Chinese manufacturers they're going really big on electric SUVs, especially larger electric SUVs, and you can see why because SUVs are just super popular. So it's rare to see a Chinese brand introduce something that is not an SUV, let alone a sedan, or a hatchback or a smaller entry level car. So Denza Z convertible. So this is sort of almost Denza, just for context, is BYD's premium brand. So sort of designed to take on the Germans head on and even like go to the likes of compete with the likes of Porsche and so forth. So they're sort of like premium luxury brand. And the Denza Z, so the Z is their new convertible. So in terms of specification, Sam, did you want to talk about some of the specification highlights?
Extremely quick, 0 to 100 in under 2 seconds. I honestly cannot imagine like, at this point, like they're like so fast, under 2 seconds at this point, it's almost like drag strip fast. But
Yeah.
it's interesting because we already have a convertible built by a Chinese brand in the MG
Yes.
Cyberster
Yeah.
selling for premium money. Now, BYD probably has even more, like at least comparatively, like people are more willing to pay for a BYD than they are for MG. But it's curious that the Cyberster's been around for a couple of years now, right? And I mean, I don't know how much they sell in Australia. Probably not very many, given I think
Yeah.
a
Have you
fairly
seen one on
easy.
the road? I
I
haven't.
don't think I have, yeah,
Yeah.
but these cars are often more of a statement, more so than thinking of we're going to sell a lot of these cars. So to that extent, it's obviously doing a good job. It's a very, it looks like a car that could have come out of any sort of European make, which
Mm.
always helps. And also, from what I understand, it will, like a lot of these cars, it will also be a technology showcase for BYD and Denza, showing the kind of like the most cutting edge tech that we have available right now. 1,500 kilowatt hour charging speed, 80% charge in under 10 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
again, we were just saying a bit ago that the other thing with, especially when you're now talking about premium EVs, what customers are looking for is that, yes, they want an EV, especially with the current fuel crisis, but also thinking that, can I have it with the convenience of a petrol car? So the
Mm.
more and more that technology comes where you can charge your car almost as fast as filling up petrol, the more those barriers sort of drop in terms of buying an EV.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, if it did come to Australia, it would, if they're still trying to sell the Cyberster at 110, this would at least be 120, 130, if not
Yeah,
more than that.
agreed.
So there's no question. Whether people would actually pay for that is a thing, but really it feels like similar to the Cyberster for MG. It's almost like people like walk in, they're like, oh, this brand also sells this extremely expensive, amazing car. So it brings that sort of halo effect for all their other cars.
That's
So
right.
even if they don't really sell many, just seeing it in the same showroom as your regular standard run-of-the-mill SUV or sedan really does help a lot for a lot of these up-and-coming brands. I remember
Yeah.
that Kia, when they made the Stinger, it was a similar sort of idea. Just having that sort of more expensive available car can help these brands who are looking to try and make a statement, help them. I mean, BYD already has Yangwang, which are already also have been making massive cars, like incredibly powerful cars for at least 2, 3 years now. But it's cool to see that they're continuing that trend.
Yeah, agreed. And I think some of that magic will rub off onto the rest of the Denza brand as well, the more volume selling model. So it's cool that they have this Halo car. I think the styling, I mean, I like the styling. It's not like anything super revolutionary. It's not ugly either. I like the taillights seem to have this sort of dual diamond shape, like so that's interesting. Yeah, it looks good. The interior. Now we don't have. We have images of what I think is the concept. Uh, for a close to production concept interior. I don't think we have the full like final interior, but from what I can see, it has like a a thin display for like the front passenger, and then has like a Tesla Model Y, Model 3 style tablet, 15-inch or so central infotainment display, and then like another infotainment, not infotainment, instrument display ahead of for the for the driver. So that's I guess the one comment there is that it doesn't seem to be as driver focused as the MG Cyberster. So the MG Cyberster in comparison has like a very wraparound interior effect, and this seems to be much more like it could be lifted straight from a BYD SUV basically. Like it doesn't seem to be super driver focused, which is, I mean, I guess it's fine, but I was thinking for a convertible roadster type vehicle, this would be a little bit more driver focused, but that is where it is. Yeah, extremely powerful. I think, yeah, very fast charging. Yeah, let's see what happens. BYD is bringing so many new models to Australia over the next sort of twelve months that I wouldn't be surprised to see if this is on sale next year, to be honest. So, yeah, it's to see it in person. Okay. Look, I think we might move on to our final topic, which is a facelifted BMW 7 Series. So, BMW has given the Neue Klasse treatment from the iX3 and the i3 to the 7 Series. So, this is probably the first combustion engine Neue Klasse model. So, I know we talked about a Mercedes as our first topic, and now we're talking about a BMW, but I have to ask this or the S-Class.
Probably also this as well. I simply
Okay,
favor BMW over Mercedes. Like hypothetically, if I was tossing up between the two, it would actually be between BMW and Audi. Now, depending on
okay,
the car or brand thing, I
okay.
would be
Yeah,
looking at.
not a Mercedes fan.
No, but I was going to say, even then, you can have a look. This is in a significantly higher price bracket than the C class, yet the BMW have still, they've got screens, but it just
Yeah,
isn't as in your face as the
yeah,
C class, right? You've still got a massive panoramic display that
yeah.
goes along the top of the car,
Dashboard.
along with one central display and one passenger display as well. So you've got screens, but even then, it's just not as in your face. So the screen in the middle is 17.9 inches. So it's a massive screen, 31 inches uh, for the rear screen as well, because obviously this is a car that's almost as much for passengers as it is for the drivers. But it still feels like, okay, it's not as in your face when you go in, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Similar to what we said before, really cutting edge technology in terms of what it can do, 700 plus kilometer range again, which is really impressive. Because I remember the first 7 Series electric, one of the problems was its range.
Mm.
So for it to now do like this kind of range is very impressive. Again, promising really fast charging speeds, 10 to 80% in less than 30 minutes. Different sort of drivetrain options as well, including a really high spec performance option. So basically, the are seeing that at least with this new 7 Series is that yes, they are screen heavy, but they're trying to be a bit more tasteful. Once again, they're trying to be like, okay, how can we improve our electric car technology to make it as convenient as possible so people don't have to stop as much for charging because it goes on long distances. And when they do, they obviously don't have to wait as long.
Mm.
And also being like, okay, now people almost seem to want a movie screen in there if they're passengers in these kinds of cars. Apparently, the rear display is an 8K display as well, no less. You can watch a movie while your chauffeur is driving you around, basically. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And the design wise, actually, I think it looks pretty good. Maybe because the 7 Series is bigger, so the design doesn't feel as like as really radical as it does in the 3 Series.
Yeah. I think I like I think the styling is they've improved the styling over the pre-facelift model, definitely. I remember the pre-facelift model was really controversial with the split headlights um and the rear was a bit like odd with the taillights were a little bit short and so on. Um and now they still have the same like fundamental design language, but they've repositioned the headlights. It's now the main headlight unit is vertical, and it looks the grille it's still huge, but it seems like a little bit more balanced as well. And the tail they've extended the tail lights a little bit more into the boot lid, so it's just a little bit wider and it's more resolved and a little bit more balanced. It has what from what I can what I've seen with the 7 Series, especially on the road, is that it's a big car. It's like a quite a tall car as well. Like you feel like the seating position is almost like an SUV level height. It has a lot of presence, and I think this facelifted model just sort of increases that. So, and I think especially in the Chinese market where all of this makes a huge difference and is a major, probably the biggest market for the 7 Series is the Chinese market along with the American market. But and customers in this market are really looking for a car with huge presence, and this definitely, I would say, has more presence than the Mercedes S-Class. Like the S-Class is more of a traditional luxury sedan. This is like, this is like almost like I mean, it's almost like a BMW Rolls-Royce too. It has a lot of presence, and I mean, I know Rolls-Royce is owned by BMW, so that's not a surprise. And they've made some other improvements as well. Like you can get it with two-tone paint now. Yeah, the interior looks like I wish that the front passenger screen was an option rather than like a compulsory standard thing because I feel like it takes away from some of the beautiful trim that they otherwise have on that sort of dashboard. But each to their own, and I can see why it's like it's just a trend at the moment. Even though many brands are moving away from those huge screens, they felt that maybe for the Chinese market they had to have that front passenger display as well. So that's that is what it is. But yeah, I think the interior otherwise it's really beautiful. The exterior has a lot of presence, and it's good that they've incorporated some of the Neue Klasse technology. So just for context, the i3 and the iX3 are running on an 800-volt architecture. This is still although it's been upgraded with some of the Neue Klasse technologies, this is still running on a 400-volt architecture. So it doesn't have that 400 kilowatt maximum DC charging speed. But what they have been able to do is incorporate some of those Generation 6 batteries. So they have improved the battery capacity to, I think it's like 112.5 kilowatt hours, and they've changed the cells to be those cylindrical cells as well. Even though the DC fast charging speed is still 250 kilowatts, so not as fast as the i3 or the iX3, but they've sort of, for a facelift, it's still a significant improvement, and it's still, the range is still increased to 727 kilometers on the WLTP cycle. So that's still a significant improvement over the pre-facelift model, not quite reaching the 900 kilometers of the i3, but that is a much smaller car as well. So yeah, I would choose this as well over the S Class. Like, I think it just has so much more presence. I think the styling works in person. Yeah, and it seems like a decent update. And this is, BMW are rolling out their Neue Klasse technology and design to, I think, what did they say? I think it's over 50 models over the next sort of like 2 years. So, um, this is another one. So they're making a lot of updates quite quickly, and it's good to see. I think this is a very, very sort of reasonable update in my opinion. Sanbiv, any further thoughts on this one?
As I said with the C class, in 10 years' time, this sort of technology will be common in an economy
Yeah,
car, in a BMW 1 or 2 series. You'll find it. Like,
yeah.
that's the wonderful thing about like expensive cars always like the preview of
Mm,
what tech in mainstream cars will look like. And also, as per everything, obviously not quite so now, but EVs tend to depreciate quite a bit. So imagine in 5 years' time picking up one of these cars for say around like just 100K basically, if
yeah,
not less. You'd be getting quite a lot of car for your buck.
definitely.
So yeah, it's great to see, and I mean, it does show. It will be funny if in the future economy cars will be the ones which are just entirely screen, and
Yeah.
actually the more expensive cars will be the ones where you have to pay for things like having real buttons and stuff. So it could be the inverse in
Potentially.
the future because yeah, you get a $30,000 Chinese car and it'll be just an entirely just a screen,
Yeah.
and you pay more and you actually get buttons.
Yeah. Yeah. Normally before it was the other way around. So
Yeah,
yeah, but and just to clarify, this is also still the 7 Series will also still be available as a pure combustion and plug-in hybrid variants as well. So the plug-in hybrid, the plug-in hybrid option is sticking with the old Generation 5 battery cell design rather than upgrading, and the combustion engine is just the I think I'm not sure if they've improved the power or not. I think most of the updates are towards the are for the electric model, but I mean the design is still the same of for the combustion engine. They've brought that's still facelifted, but the powertrain that I think there's largely carryover for the combustion engine models. Okay, look, I think we might end it there for this week's episode of the Hook Turn podcast. So thank you very much again for listening to us. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcasts as well. So please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Thanks very much. Bye.